My name is Jeffrey Snipes. I'm from this community. The story I'm going to be telling with y'all today is based mainly in Hillsborough, Orange County area. I currently live in Durham County, recently released from incarceration 3 months ago. In a little bit, I just want to tell y'all how I found the Baha'i faith in my tribulations and trials. I'm a little nervous. Nah, it just means a lot because I'm not used to being around accepting people. So it means a lot to me to be here today. I grew up here in Hillsborough, and lower class family, trailer parks. And God was not really prevalent in my family. There was no God in my family. God was just a way to send us to Sunday school so my parents could stay at home. And so that's when God first stepped into my life, was at a young age, but I did not see it. It was more in the form of materialism, just to go get something out of church so I could get away from my parents. And so being deprived of them really set me on my spiritual journey and my spiritual path of where I am today and where it led me to. So I ended up on my own at an early age due to being pushed away. And so, like all people who are pushed away from their families have to find their path on their own, right? So at an early age, I started doing what I knew was best. Friends who wasn't my family. Not the best of friends, as you can tell. I had to make the decisions on my own without my family, so I ended up getting there to where I am. So I started at a young age of taking care of myself, supporting myself with no support. And so that led me down a path of drugs at a young age, introduced to drugs, introduced by family members to drugs. That's all I've ever known. And it led me into incarceration from a young age, up foster homes, from foster homes to incarceration, then to here. Read my notes. I'm sorry, y'all. Slow to me. Okay, I would like to start with my early childhood signs by reading this, Hidden Words. At a young age, I was never content with anything. I found that being content was not a good thing because I was too content. So this hidden word represents that. O offspring of dust, be not content with the ease of a passing day, and deprive not thyself of everlasting rest. Barter not the garden of eternal delight, for the dust heap of a mortal world. Up from thy prison ascend unto the glorious means above, and from the mortal cage wing thy flight into the paradise of the placeless. Incarceration, I found myself too content, and that's what really set me on my spiritual journey of being too content. I found that being too content was not good. And when I mean too content is I was okay. I got to a point in my life where I didn't know God, I didn't know friends, I didn't know nothing. So being content with being there, I found that it did not bother me. I found that being incarcerated didn't affect me. I started to like it after a while because of my past childhood of not knowing nothing else. So in incarceration, I found a friendship that I never had before I found God. And when I found this friendship, I grew attached to it and couldn't detach myself from it from the longest. And it really affected me, and I finally found myself, and I found the Baha'i faith right after I was released from solitary confinement for getting in trouble with gangs in prison life, drugs, and just not behaving. So what led me there, I'm going to start with that from an early age, is a real effect on my life. I had a friend who came from California, Pasadena, California. And over there, it's more prevalent for gangs and drugs instead of little old Hillsborough. You know, you don't really find that. Hillsborough is one of them places where you have to be from here to truly get in trouble. Somebody from outside of Hillsborough, you don't come here to find trouble. It's just not here, you know? And so I had a good friend come over there, and he introduced me to that life. And at the time, I didn't have family, so I latched onto him. And he introduced me to a whole new world, and it led me down the path that I am today. And so I started finding God as a gang member with the rosary. I didn't know what a rosary is, but a rosary is a fashion trend within gangs for anybody who do not know this. And so I would wear this rosary, never a Christian, never anything along them lines. I just knew it represented God. And that was a representation of God to me, but not in a spiritual way. Once again, it goes back to me connecting with God on a material way. So as I was indulging in these gangs, and I was indulging in drugs, selling drugs, taking care of myself from a young age, I would thumb my rosary as, God protect me while I do this. God protect me while I do these bad things. You know, God help me through this. We're going to rob these people. We're going to take everything they worked hard for. God protect me. And that's how I connected with God. And so it progressed through that. And God wasn't protecting me material, you know, through that. So I started ending up in the foster homes that I spoke of. I started ending up in being owned by the state, taken from my family, because my family didn't care what I did. I would get high with my mom. I would get high with my stepfather. And so the state recognized that, and they took me. And so I moved on. I forgot God for a while. I kept doing what I was doing. And God came to me a second time from my father, who is also incarcerated. My father has been incarcerated for 11 years. He has a 14-year, 9-month sentence for second-degree murder. Gets out 2019. And he connected with me through Native American spirituality. God came to me the second time through that form. And he sent me a prayer feather, a hawk feather. If anybody knows about Native American spirituality, is how you pray. And I would use that for a protection method as well, along with the medicine bag and other Native American talismans, amulets, whatever you want to call them. And I would continue, I would carry that feather with me, and I would do bad things. I would rob, I would sell drugs, I would go to school and fight, and I would just anything, any excuse that I could come up with, God's gonna help me because I got my feather. And God didn't help me. He didn't help me, not materially. So that was my second bump in with God. And I finally gave that one up on my grandfather's passing, because when my grandfather passed, no more God for me. I stuck the feather in his casket. And it was the end of Native American spirituality for me. So I ended up going back to my rosary and landed in jail for the first time for assault with a deadly weapon under the influence of drugs. I went to jail, and while I was incarcerated in jail for them couple of weeks, for the first time in my life, I picked up a Bible. I didn't know what it was. I never studied Christianity. All I knew was hellfire and brimstone, spoken on televangelists. My grandfather was a televangelist. And so I prayed and prayed and prayed and was released and went back to the same things. And that led me right back again to incarceration, this time for a longer period of time. My recent time, I was just out. I got out August 18th this year. I did 4 years. Attempted robbery with a dangerous weapon. I did 4 years. A lot of that on solitary confinement for staying in trouble. Locked in a cell no bigger than a middle-class person's bathroom. I did a lot of time in the hole. So I started finding different ways to find God in there, but more of still in the material fashion, because my influences growing up didn't allow me to contact with spirituality. I knew nothing of spirituality. God was a joke. And from an early age, my uncles, my family, all of them used it as the same form. It's okay, we can pray, but we can still do bad. And my uncle really affected me on that. He affected me in the sense of my uncle started using with me when I was 10 years old. We started using drugs together. And that progressed, but it was okay because my uncle said, God said, just pray, and it's fine, you know? But he knew nothing about God. It was just the stereotype of modern Christianity of, it's okay, just go to church on Sunday. Even though I didn't go to church, but, just pray, repentance. So that strongly affected me on that. So I ended back up, like I said, my 4 years, in and out of the hole a couple times. So within there and within the gang life, I focused my whole world around two words: diligence and loyalty. Diligence is in anything I've ever done, I set my mind to it, spiritually or materialistically. Loyalty is in, I don't give up on somebody once I pledge myself to them, and I still struggle with that to this day, of leaving them behind to be here with y'all. I get phone calls all the time. I don't know whether to pick up. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. And so I started studying all the different ways, from gang literature as a religion, because I found that in religions we all have morals and ethics. And in that you do have morals and ethics. You do have creeds, you do have oaths that you go by, regardless of your Godhead or not. That is a form of worship. I started covering myself, gang tattoos. Started worshiping that. And that's what I thought I was going to do for the rest of my life at one time. I got to a point in there that I thought I was never coming home, because it was either me or the next person. And that strongly affected me to this day. It's a little nervous coming in here because I was just released from incarceration, so it's kind of odd that I don't have to turn around and watch y'all. And it's a good feeling. Same time, I don't trust y'all. Just playing. So anyway, I started studying in there very hard, and I ended up with Buddhism, but it really struck me in the wrong way because the different sects and different schools, so it was kind of like another gang to me. Different sects, different schools, different colors, so I never really attached onto it, but I used it for just the morals and ethics, still with the mark of the beast on my face. I still used it, and on the weekends, still drank wine out of my trash can and out of my toilet. Get drunk on the weekends in prison, get high, pay the guards to bring me drugs, socialize with the same people who prostrate every day, but stab the man next to them and go to the hole for 18 months and say it's okay because I can prostrate my whole time in the hole. And so I was still stuck in this mind frame of, I can do what I want as long as I ask for forgiveness. But I didn't know what to ask forgiveness to. So I started studying more and more. I ended up on the course of Islam. I never became Muslim, but I ended up studying it in the light of Buddhism, Sufism. And I found that didn't want to calm me down either. And so I started comparing. And the whole time in my mind, I'm flashing back to Orange County jailhouse, the first time I ever became across the path of the Baha'i faith. I picked up a book, I believe it was Gleanings. I talked with Glenn about it one time. And I don't remember if it was Gleanings or not, but I knew I threw it down because as soon as I picked it up, I believe it is Gleanings, it says, "O ye Jews, if you wish to crucify me." And as soon as I seen that, I don't want it, because it has something to do with Abrahamic beliefs to me. And so as that went along, I kept neglecting that, neglecting, but I had built up all these knowledges of all these